Okay, good evening, everyone. We are on the record.
It doesn't look like it's gone live yet. It still says pre-live.
Don't hit end. All right, we're good.
Looks like it's live. Yep.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We are on the record. Today is Wednesday, the 22nd day of April. This is a regular meeting of the Jersey City Municipal Council. In effort to adhere to the social distancing protocols and best practices imposed by the city and state authorities, the city of Jersey City has canceled all public meetings and closed non-essential services as of March 16th, 2020 until further notice. As a result, this council meeting will be held virtually as a video conference with public access. We had a scheduled 6 p.m. start. The clock on my computer is showing 6:01 p.m. May we have a roll call for the commencement of this meeting? Councilperson Ridley.
Here.
Councilperson Prinzeri.
Here.
Councilperson Baggiano.
Here.
Councilperson Solomon.
Here.
Councilperson Robinson.
Here. Hello?
I heard you. Gotcha.
Okay.
Councilperson Lavaro.
Here.
Councilperson Rivera.
I'm here.
And Council President Waterman.
Here.
Thank you. We have 8 members of the Municipal Council in attendance at 6:01 p.m. Can we kindly rise for a moment of silence, please?
In memory of Dr. Leo Dela Cruz, doctor at Christ Hospital, a frontliner.
In memory of Craig Goletz and Shafkat Khan.
Jerry Corvilla. Arthur Alexander David. Linda Smith, wife of Ivan Smith, Jersey City residents. Charmaine Bryan Powell, sister of Anise Abdullah.
Thank you very much. Kindly remain standing as we salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
Stands
one nation,
nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible, liberty,
liberty, justice.
for all. Thank you very much. On behalf of Council President Waterman, in accordance with the New Jersey Public Laws of 1975, Chapter 231, the Open Public Meetings Act, also known as the Sunshine Law, adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by the posting on the bulletin board of the first floor of City Hall, the amended annual notice, which is the schedule of meetings and caucuses of the Municipal Council for the calendar year 2020, and filed in the office of the City Clerk on Wednesday, March 25th, 2020. In addition, at its time of its preparation, the agenda of this meeting was similarly disseminated on Friday, April 17th, 2020 at 6 p.m. to the Municipal Council, Mayor, Business Administrator, Corporation Council, and the local newspapers, and posted on the city's website, so I can certify as to our total compliance with the Sunshine Law. Council members, Before we move on to our scheduled business, I need a motion to add items 3.4 and 10.23.
Motion.
Motion made by Council President Waterman.
What are they?
May I have a second?
Nick, do you want to just explain in summary what those two items are
Yep.
related to Muhlenberg Gardens?
Sure. These are, they're from a prior abatement. It's a change in the financial entity that is subject to the abatement. So it does not change the abatement. The new entity has the same rights and obligations as the previous entity. It is strictly a entity transfer. That it's permitted under the abatement that was previously approved. So that's what 3.4 is. They're running because of our schedule with the crisis we've experienced here in the city. These probably would have been on about a month ago. That's why there's a resolution as well. In order to try to effectuate their closing, they've asked a resolution from the council be passed, essentially signaling the council's intent to pass the second reading ordinance at the next meeting. So all the resolution says is the council's intent is that they will pass the resolution in accordance with Ordinance 3.4. Just to reiterate, though, this does not change the abatement at all. The amount of money coming into the city as part of the abatement requirements will be exactly the same, and the rights and obligations of the new entity will be exactly the same as that of the old entity.
So,
What's the term of this abatement? The remainder of the term?
It was like 3 years as of 2018, so it's only about another 18 months.
And
The original
this is a
30-year
senior housing?
abatement, it was an extension of 3 years. It's senior housing.
So are the designation of senior housing and affordability, I assume it's affordable, right? Is that tied to the abatement, or is that effectuated some other way?
I believe that is tied to the abatement, which is the reason they got the 3 years extension a couple years ago when they got it.
And so the new party is getting it for 18 months. And do we know what their intention is after the length of this abatement?
I do not know what their intention is after the abatement.
I'd like to request that they come to the council meeting so we can discuss that with them.
We can put that request in. However, I just keep in mind that under the terms of the abatement, they're allowed to transfer the financial entity can transfer it as long as they're bound by the terms of the abatement. So you're certainly welcome to inquire, but I'm not sure that's a basis not to allow the transfer of the entity.
Right. Okay.
So I'd be happy to pass along to the council who's involved in this to come to the council meeting and explain what the plans are in the future. But I would just caution the council. I don't believe that would not be a reason to deny the opportunity to transfer for the duration of the abatement as it exists currently.
Right. Any questions?
None.
Okay, go ahead,
Okay,
Sean.
so I have a motion made by Councilperson Waterman to add items 3.4 and 10.23. May I have a second?
what's 10.23?
Is the resolution that Nick just explained to you with regards to the ordinance. It's a companion resolution.
Second.
Second made by, can you repeat that?
Rivera.
Thank you. Councilperson Rivera. On the motion to add items 3.4 and 10.23, Councilperson Ridley.
Aye.
Councilperson Prince Airy.
Aye.
Councilperson Baggiano.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilperson Solomon.
Aye.
Councilperson Robinson.
Aye.
Councilperson Lavaro.
Aye.
Councilperson Rivera,
Aye.
and Council President Waterman.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0 to add items 3.4 and 10.23. Okay, on to our first reading ordinances. If I may, I'll read them into the record. Item 3.1, City Ordinance 20-034, an ordinance authorizing the execution of a First Amendment to a rights-of-way use agreement between the City of Jersey City and Cross River Fiber LLC to permit the installation of high-capacity fiber optic cable and equipment for mobile telecommunications on existing utility poles and to install new utility poles within certain public rights-of-way for the purpose of providing telecommunication services. Item 3.2, City Ordinance 20-035, an ordinance supplementing Chapter 332, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 9, Parking for the Disabled of the Jersey City Code, designating a reserved parking space at various locations throughout the city. Next item is item 3.3, City Ordinance 20-036, an ordinance of the City of Jersey City amending Chapter 260, Rent Control. Number 1, imposing a rent freeze on all units subject to rent control during the current public health emergency declared by the Governor of New Jersey. And number 2, prohibiting any collection of a penalty for a late payment of rent as a result of the current public health emergency declared by the Governor. Item 3.4, which is the new item that was added, Ordinance 20-037, an ordinance authorizing the business administrator to execute a consent assignment and assumption agreement between the city, Muhlenberg Senior Housing Urban Renewal LLC, and Muhlenberg Gardens Urban Renewal LLC, effectuating the transfer and assignment of the property and the tax exemption held by Muhlenberg Senior Housing Urban Renewal LLC to Muhlenberg Gardens Urban Renewal LLC pursuant to the Limited Dividend Nonprofit Housing Corporations or Associations Law, NJSA 55:16-1 exec. Council members, we are taking a vote for items 3.1 through 3.4.
So,
Let me,
Sean, quick, can I ask a question with respect to the rent ordinances? Can we let Councilman Solomon elaborate on what's happening here?
that's not Solomon's ordinance, Danny.
I mean, the amendments rather that Solomon Solomon wants to put on.
So the,
I'm sorry, that actually is Councilman Solomon's ordinance.
right, so the ordinance there, it is one that I was working on. We amended it based on the conversation on Monday. Councilman Boggiano had specifically asked that it not extend through the duration of the public health emergency, but it end on August 1st. So that amendment is there. The second was concern about people being able to pay the property taxes. So we amended to not include anyone in an owner-occupied 1 to 4 family. But so it does is it imposes a freeze on rent increases for rent-controlled buildings and 1 to 4 families, provided that they are not owner-occupied. So that's what it does. I know some folks have asked about the idea of merging ordinances. I am totally open to that. I would defer to the law department on our ability to do that. The only issue for me is time and just making sure we pass it at our next meeting in May, given that May is coming, assuming that the council is in agreement with some of these changes. And then I'm also happy because this isn't, really my ordinance was the one originally proposed. These amendments really are a joint effort. If we all wanted to jointly kind of co-sponsor this on the second reading and have it as a joint council ordinance, that's something I'm totally amenable to as well.
Okay. Any question, guys? Any questions?
I have a question.
Who's that?
I know we talked about, I guess you, Councilman Solomon, you said something about joining the the ordinances together. Is that something that the administration is looking to do? And if not, can we actually pass both of these simultaneously?
Administration?
Well, I can weigh in on that from a legal perspective, Council President, if you would like.
Yes.
What happened on the last meeting is the council passed the administration's version of the rent control ordinance. With the rent freezes for any units that are currently subject to rent control with a hard termination date of August 1st. So that is up for second reading at your next meeting. So because that's already been passed as a first reading, you're not going to really be able to merge them at this point. What you could do is collectively with the administration and the council, if you're able to see eye to eye on what Councilman Solomon has produced and pass that, obviously you can pass that one at the next meeting and then not pass what the administration had originally proposed. But the problem is once you go, if they are both at first readings, we probably could merge them. But actually one is now past first reading and one is at first reading. So for a procedural matter, you're going to have to vote on both of them, assuming this one passes this week in whatever form it is. And then 2 weeks from now, you're going to have both ordinances to vote on. You really can't pass both of them because there are contrary terms in each of them. So passing both of them would render a lot of confusion. So no matter what form this one takes, one has to pass or one has to fail because they're inconsistent.
Okay.
And Sean, I would just ask Sean Gallagher, do you have Councilman Solomon's most recent version?
It's this.
Okay. It wasn't online, so I just wanted to double check to make sure Sean, as the clerk, had the most recent version for passage.
The amendments are not included in the published agenda. They're only, I know that Laura was putting in some amendments, but it didn't make it to us in time. Only a few of us can make changes to the published agenda once it's been published. So what's displayed online is not inclusive of the amendments, but we can either add them on the record now. I actually don't know the procedure or what we would need to do to get them in there at this point.
We would have to add them now and then vote on them as is, because we're not amending the ordinance because it's a first reading.
Yeah.
So we would just add the amendments as discussed at the caucus and introduce it the way it was discussed at the caucus.
Do we need the precise language in order to do that? To avoid any...
Councilman, I can go through that briefly if you'd like. I'll just read my understanding of the amendments, and Council Solomon, you can give me a yes or no if that's what your understanding is, and then we'll incorporate the language formally in the public publishing of the for second reading.
Yeah, I mean, what you wrote, Nick, is I looked at it is great. I'm a little confused because my understanding is Laura was calling to put this on. So, you know, and this was 3 hours ago. So I'm not sure why we're, you know, going to take everyone's time and we couldn't figure this out, because we make amendments between caucus and council meeting, and, you know, that there has to be a clear process to do that. And so excuse my frustration, but yes, Nick, you can read them into the record.
Okay, so for the two changes, the most is the change of the application of the rent freeze to 1 in 4 families entirely. It is now going to be 1 in 4 families who are not owner occupied only. So the exemption will continue for any 1 to 4 families that are owner occupied. That's the first point. The second point is, rather than terminating when the governor concludes the state of emergency, there'll be a hard end date of August 1st. And the clause that would allow for this particular clause to be reinstituted, should the governor ever reestablish a COVID-19 related state of emergency, is also eliminated. So we have a owner occupied exemption that will continue for 1 to 4 families, and a hard end date of August 1st. Those are the two changes.
Okay. All right. Any more questions of that? Is that what you agree upon, James? Is that clear?
Yes.
Anyone else have questions?
No, the changes were made, as far as I can see. As long as it ends August 1st, I'll go along with it.
All right,
Okay, so let's go.
Okay.
Okay, so on items 3.1 through 3.4, Councilperson Ridley.
For 3.1, Brian, I did get your email with some of the updates that we discussed from the last meeting. On Monday, I did convert the latitude and longitude to addresses, and I shared that with the council as I said I would. I know that this has been a concern, particularly for residents in Ward A who have reached out to me. And so I'm currently working with the law department to see if we could put some regulations around installations of just telecommunications in general, 5G and other communication, and looking at ordinances from other towns in New Jersey. For example, Little Silver has an ordinance that I'm now working with the law department to see if we can implement something similar here. So until we do that, and to keep the residents at ease, whether you believe 5G is dangerous, whether you don't believe it's dangerous, regardless of that, we should set some laws around it. So until we do that, I am going to vote no on 3.1 and aye for introduction on all the rest. Excuse me.
Denise, I think around the island section, they had come along and they had marked people's sidewalks. And they were going to put these poles on people's sidewalks. And there was quite a few people on the island section that were really ticked off about this. I agree with you 100%, Denise.
Councilperson Prinzary.
Aye for introduction.
Councilperson Baggiano.
No, not until further explanations are given.
We're voting on items 3.1 through 3.4.
I'm sorry, 3.1.
3.1, you're voting no, and the rest?
Okay.
Aye on the rest?
Aye. Yeah.
Thank you. Councilperson Solomon.
I'll vote to introduce 3.1, but I share many of the concerns of Councilman Ridley and Councilman Boggiano, and if they're not addressed prior to second reading, I will probably vote against it, but for now, vote aye for all.
Thank you. Councilperson Robinson.
Yeah, I share the same sentiments as the other council representatives as far as 3.1. I haven't had a lot of feedback from residents, but I'm not sure if that's because they agree with it or they just don't know about it. So until, May 6th, we'll be trying to do some homework to see if it's something that the residents truly want. So I'll vote aye for introduction for all. And for the other ordinance, I just hope that we can, come to some agreement before, the next council meeting. Hopefully we can discuss it in the next caucus to get these two ordinances to just be in one, so that we don't have to have any confusion, and not for us, but just for the residents of the city. So aye for all.
Thank you very much. Councilperson Labarro.
Yeah, so on 3.4, Nick, agreement with this, the new owner of the property, or if there was one previously for the prior owner, and what the terms of that is, if you could share that with us so that we know what, if there's any other legal requirements out there on both parties. And then if you can let us know as well, or somebody, maybe to the business administrator, with regard to the property itself, if there's any outstanding violations or anything of that nature, that before we authorize the transfer, to ensure that they're in compliance before the council authorizes something like this. And then secondly, if you can check if the new owner owns any other properties, and if they're in compliance with any of their properties within the city, if they should have any. That being said, let me go back to 3.1. As was discussed at the caucus, we've discussed this in previous, this has come before the council on 2 different occasions. And We had lengthy discussions about what was possible here in terms of regulations and restrictions, whether we could impose additional fees, whether we could ensure more safety and so forth for the residents as well. And we kept hearing that there were no alternatives for us. And so a couple of things, whatever information you find out about other municipalities and whatever grounds they're using to regulate or somehow impose any sort of restrictions, ask that you provide that to the entire council. Secondly, when it was suggested that there was, did we receive any legal memo regarding the idea that that there was nothing we could do, that the FCC had the authority there, and that we were basically just permitted to just charge the one fee that we could do?
Yeah, that memo was included in an email I sent earlier this morning with follow-ups from the caucus, yes.
And it explains the legal basis for not being able to take any action on them?
Yeah, that we do have some limited options. One of the options, as I described in the email, was we have the ability to have some discretion over the design of the pole. That is something that, as I noted, we are not going to approve any more pole installations until the petitioner and the vendor has provided a drawing, a rendering of the pole that is approved by the council. So we're just going to make sure you're a part of that process. As you know, we were told in these first meetings, in these first few council meetings a year ago, with the first vendors that came through, that the poles would adhere to the standards of the historic districts and blend into the neighborhoods, but that doesn't seem to be the case at this point. We also are just going to go back through and look and make sure that we've approved all the poles that have been installed. We're not 100% sure that all these poles actually came through us that we're seeing around.
Okay. So I want to take a look at, and I did not, I'm sure I have the email, but did not have an opportunity to review that and look at the other information. So I'm going to vote no on 3.1 today with an open mind towards looking at it on second reading. And I'll vote aye on all the rest.
Thank you. Councilperson Rivera.
So I'm going to vote aye for introduction, but I just want to make sure that we're hearing, the ward council people, as well as everybody else, that, this needs to get looked at. I won't vote for it, on the second reading if our demands are not met, with respect to letting us know what they're doing moving forward. So aye for introduction.
Thank you. And Council President Waterman.
Well, you can see that Brian, you can see we all have a concern for 3.1. So I'm gonna vote aye for introduction, but if those needs are not met, this probably will not pass 3.1. So, so just kind of give us what we need. And I know Denise is working on this diligently to see if there's any recall that we can do or some type of policy that we can come up with concerning 5G. So like I said, with that, I'll just vote aye for introduction.
Understood. Yeah, and we will make sure to have the petitioner for this ordinance at the next caucus meeting.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian.
Yep.
Okay, just to recap, item 3.1 is introduced 5-3 with council members Ridley, Baggiano, and Navarro voting no. Items 3.2 through 3.4 are approved 8-0. Okay, on to our next. We do not have any second readings on this meeting, so that's why I didn't make any announcements to the members of the public looking to have a public hearing, because we do not have any second readings or public hearings for the ordinances. So we're going to move right on to the public request for hearings. The first speaker we have listed on the agenda has chosen to be heard at the May 6th meeting, which is the next meeting. That's Elizabeth Wedson, who was listed as speaker number 1. Speaker number 2, we're going to go right to, and that's Jean Daly, who I do have, we'll get on the phone in a minute. Just give me 1 second. I'm sorry about that noise, guys. Give me 1 second.
Your call cannot be completed. Your call cannot.
I'm sorry, guys. Give me 1 second.
Sure, no problem, Sean.
Gene Daly, how are you?
I'm doing fine.
Okay, just give me 1 second, Gene. I'm not going to time you yet because I want to make sure that all the council members can hear you. Gene, if you could just say hello.
Hello.
Can everybody?
Louder, Gene, louder.
Yeah, gotta get high.
Hold on. Go ahead, Gene.
You got your timer there?
Not yet, not yet. I'm not ready to time you. I want to make sure they can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me? Can everyone
Yes,
hear
I can hear you better.
Yes.
Okay.
First of all, John is laughing.
Okay,
Everyone else
Gene,
probably
give-
thinks that's
I'm
round,
going to
but
give you in 3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, again, my name is Jean Daly. I'm speaking on the record about resolution 10.8. It is regarding the granting of a contract to Jean's Landscaping. Trouble I do have with Jean's is because they stuck out to me about a year ago when I noticed them doing work on Montgomery Street. Additionally, because they had their address was a New York address, Airmont, New York. Their license plates were New York license plates. And it appeared, not to be negative in any way, but it seemed like they had hired immigrant labor. My concern is that this company, though it seems to have different locations, they have a location in Airmont, New York, which is their main business address. They have another address with another main business address as in Muncie, New York. But they do have on the side of their truck a Jersey number, and I think in the information provided on the resolution, they have a Jersey address. My concern is that I would prefer that we have a local company. There's no reason in the world that Jersey City cannot get a local company to hire local people for this job. Additionally, this is a non-essential business right now, as far as I'm concerned. There's been nobody in the park. There's probably not been anybody in the park for quite some time. An investment of over like $40,000 at this point in time seems a little extravagant, and I think it's a big mistake. I also do believe that we need someone in New Jersey, we need someone in Hudson County, and we need to hire local. That is really my concern with this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Gene. Okay. With that, that is our last speaker. We have no petitions or communications, officer communications, or report of directors. I am going to go right to our claims and addendum number 1. On claims and addendum number 1, Councilperson Ridley.
Aye.
Councilperson Prinzary.
Aye.
Councilperson Baggiano.
Aye.
Councilperson Solomon.
Aye.
Councilperson Robinson.
Aye.
Councilperson Lavaro. Councilperson Lavaro, your mic is muted. Your mic is muted, Councilman.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilperson Rivera.
Aye.
and Council President Waterman.
Aye.
Claims and addendum number 1 are approved 8-0. Moving on to our resolution. I'm going to be calling for a vote on items 10.1 through 10.7. Councilperson Ridley.
Aye.
Councilperson Prinzary.
Aye.
Councilperson Baggiano.
Aye.
Councilperson Solomon.
Aye.
Councilperson Robinson.
I think Gene Daly touched on it a little while ago
That's
about
10.8.
no 10.7, the ruckus, the study. I'm just hoping that the study gets done underway. I hope the pandemic don't cause too much delay in what's going on to get this study going. I know she talked about 10.8, but I think this is really important to get this done, as soon as possible. And in the caucus meeting, Councilman Navarro talked about 10.5, and he talked about the need to bring back tax abatements and other things to get these affordable housing built in the community without, extinguishing all of the funds from the community development and affordable housing trust fund and CDBG money. I think it's a shame that we're using all of that money to try to get this project done, but it's been going for a long time, and we still have, I think, one more resolution awarding them money. And I think Councilman Navarro was really right about us having to look at this in a real serious way, because we're losing out on the opportunity to get these affordable housing built if we're going to use all of the money that we have for one project. And I vote aye for all of them.
Thank you. Councilperson Navarro.
Yeah, just on 10.5, as Councilman Robinson said, and I raised this during the caucus, and I do think we need to restore tax abatements and to be able to fund and source affordable housing in Jersey City, pretty much wherever you go throughout the state of New Jersey and around the country. Tax incentives are a necessity in producing affordable housing. We've learned that from both developers as well as nonprofit experts, and in our discussions around inclusionary zoning. And so, while I'm glad to see that we're going to see 20 new affordable units, I think we could be using our dollars better. And so, on that basis, and for that reason, I'm going to vote no on 10.5, and continue to push for and press for tax abatements for affordable housing. And I'll vote aye on all the rest.
Thank you. Councilperson Rivera.
I vote aye.
And Council President Waterman.
When it comes to 10.5, I just hope that this situation here with the crisis help us keep an open mind, because of the financial struggles throughout the whole city. Tax abatement is going to be essential to help us build back this economy in so many different ways, not just for affordable housing, but for employment, for rent control, so many issues. And so I just hope that we keep an open mind. The reason why I'm voting for 10.5, because when they started out this process, they were going for a tax abatement, but somewhere along the line, we shift and said that we wasn't giving out no more. So this organization here, they suffered. They suffered for a couple of years. And so it was great that we do have the Affordable Housing Trust Fund so this project can move forward in an area that desperately needs it. And so with that in mind, I just asked the council to keep an open mind and moving forward with different type of incentives that we're going to have to use to try to get the economy up and running, not just with affordable housing, but with small business and everything else. So with that, I vote aye.
Thank you. Just to recap, items 10.1 through 10.4 are approved 8-0. Item 10.5 is approved 7-1, with Councilperson Navarro voting no. Items 10.6 and 10.7 are approved 8-0. On to our next set of resolutions. I'll be taking a vote on items 10.8 through 10.17, with the exception of 10.12, which has been withdrawn. Councilperson Ridley.
Aye.
Councilperson Prince Airy.
Aye.
Apologies, just one small change to 10.16. We would request that it's amended in the ordinance here, and we can't remember. Just want to confirm the discussion that we had around this. One of the versions, the earlier version, said this is a contract increased by 150,000, and we wanted to say 75,000 instead of 150,000. So that is the version that's here. Just want to make sure everyone's okay with that. So we're lowering the maximum.
Right.
That's correct. Sorry, I was on mute there for a second.
And that was also mentioned and discussed at the caucus.
Discussed with the caucus, yeah, and that has been changed here.
Yep.
Council President,
Yeah.
just make a statement before we continue the vote. Yes. So just, I want to go back to 10.8 and thank Jean for bringing that to attention. And I'm just reading it more closely and just.
We voted on this already, Rolando?
No, we have not.
Okay.
We're about to vote on it now.
Okay.
And so this ordinance, this resolution, it looks like the two vendors who bid on it were solicited via informal solicitation, meaning they, the purchasing agent made some phone calls, and made some inquiries, but found two solicitations. And to her point, and I think we've all talked about this, the need for
local. Yeah.
Exactly. The situation where you know, if it was one thing, if it was going out to bid and the minority and local vendors weren't registered with the system or didn't have all of the business certifications and all the other things, but this is a situation where it's informal quotes are being solicited and could be calling up some local businesses and walking them through that process if they didn't have those documents in place, the business certificates or whatever else is required. Or maybe they already have it and we're just not calling them. So I would urge us to take a second look at this one and see if we could look for if we can do informal solicitation around that, which shouldn't take very long, I think, process-wise to be able to do that. And at this time, we're not using the parks, and so certainly we don't want our parks to suffer and the grass to grow and look like bad landlords there. But we want to, I think, make a good faith effort to try to find local contractors. That's all I have to say.
Brian, did they check with diversity inclusion? Do you know?
Yeah, Public Works did check with diversity inclusion.
Okay.
This contract in particular is a little more complicated. It requires some state licenses. It requires some experience with certain types of materials and pesticides and that sort of thing. This is also a vendor we've been using for many years. There are many instances where we are going to diversity inclusion and finding additional quotes and additional vendors and doing what we can. This doesn't seem to be one of them, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. Go ahead.
Okay, so councilpersons Ridley and Prince Airy, we're still moving forward, and you're voting aye on all, correct?
Yes, correct. What numbers were those again?
It was items 10.8 through 10.17, with the exception of 10.12, which has been withdrawn.
Yes, aye.
Thank you. And Councilperson Prince Airy, I just wanted to make sure after the explanations that were given.
Yes, aye.
Very good. And we're going to move to Councilperson Bajian.
All right. The only thing I can say is with this 10.8, somebody sent me a picture of one of their trucks with New York plates on it. And I think somewhere in the state of New Jersey, we should be using a company from the state of New Jersey, not New York. And so I'm going to vote no on 10.8, yes on the rest.
Thank you very much. Councilperson Solomon.
So I'll vote no on 10.8 and aye on all the rest. Oh, actually, sorry, can I amend that, Sean? I'll vote no on 10.16. I think it's great that we're moving to in-house counsels, but I've been pretty consistent on opposing outside tax appeals attorneys, and so wanted to just keep that consistent and vote no on 10.16. So no on 10.8 and no on 10.16 and aye on all the rest.
Got it. Thank you. Councilperson Robinson.
Well, I can't believe that I'm like going out here with Jean Daly so much today and mentioning her name, you know, but I think she's right on about, you know, 10.8. I asked the meeting in the caucus, did we check around for local people to, you know, see if we can get this done? I mean, now more than ever with this pandemic going on, we have to take care of our own. We have to make sure that we are looking first in Jersey City and, you know, next in the state of New Jersey. I mean, of course, New York is our neighboring city, and I don't hold anything against them, but we should be really looking for Jersey City residents, because we have to take care of our own, or if not, like Councilman Baggiano said, in Jersey. But we do have the parks, we're not using them, but I truly believe that right now the weather is getting warm and we don't want these parks overrun and looking bad, because the next thing we'll get is that we're not taking care of our own parks. I don't know the time limit. BA, could you tell me a time limit on like, if we go back out to bid, how long does this take to get in place to have all of the work needed here? Because I do see Berry Lane Park is, you know, on the list, and Gateway and a couple of other Ward F parks.
Yeah, if we were going to do a straight bid on this, it would be a couple of months at least if everything went smoothly. Even if we were going out to solicit additional quotes, you're looking at least a month, 6 weeks probably, if everything went smoothly, if we were just doing quotes for smaller contracts here. So that puts us, you know, well into the end of spring there.
Well, I think we got to do a better job, BA, and administration, all of us together. We still council members. We have to do a better job to make sure that we are looking for Jersey City people up front. I think we missed an opportunity here, but I don't want to miss an opportunity on making sure the parks are, you know, upheld. So I'm going to vote aye for this, kind of reluctantly. But you know, if something like this is in front of us again anytime soon, BA, and I'm asking you to, you know, to help us out here to make sure that you talk to purchasing to let them know that we need to make sure we're reaching out to people. I know you said we've been using them a long time, but that doesn't really give us an excuse to not look towards Jersey City residents or the state of New Jersey, because we really need to take care of ourselves here. So I'll vote aye on all.
Yep, understood, Councilman.
Thank you. Councilperson Navarro.
Yeah, just on 10.8, I won't beat a dead horse. I think we can find local vendors on this. I do have a question, though, to the administration with regard to 10.8. You suggested that diversity and inclusion had looked into this. Is there, I don't see in the resolution anything attesting to there. And I thought when we passed some legislation that we did in there to require that there be some attestation or some sort of confirmation, or that they had in fact had a crack at the or were aware of the contract in some way, and then had,
I don't remember the specifics of the ordinance and exactly what it called for. The main thing that we've done is in the approval process for all POs, the Office of Diversity and Inclusion is the last level of approval. So no contract is fully approved without diversity and inclusion clicking approve on it. So there is a very tight process in place.
Okay. Well, I would like to see something in documentation and to the law department, then like to see if we can amend some of the legislation to formally require in the resolution itself, just as we do say that business entity disclosure certification, political contribution certification, et cetera, are placed on file with this resolution, that there be some other documentation placed on file that suggests that diversity and inclusion was involved in the process of local hires. There were attempts made to solicit for that. That being said, I'm going to vote no on 10.8, and I'm also going to vote no on 10.16 as well.
And aye on all the rest?
And aye on all the rest.
Thank you. Councilperson Rivera.
So with respect to 10.8, I remember about 7-8 years ago, well, probably about 10 years ago, we had a situation with our parks, especially the parks that, where I played ball and coached and ran. And we had a situation where a contractor for fields was closed down. Well, actually, it wasn't voted on. It took them to go back to bid almost 4 or 5 months. And that's the worry that I have, because I know that although we're not using these parks, but we hope that we can get that our city's youth can start using them back in maybe October or November for whatever sport is out for that season. But if it doesn't get fertilized, and we're going to have a whole boatload of crabgrass, throughout the parts, of our city. So I understand, the concerns that people have with the fertilization, or with this contractor not being from New Jersey or Jersey City, but this is something that we have to look into in the off seasons with respect to parks, like November, December, something that we can work that in. But to hold something now will kind of like delay the city's parks back, and we have to be careful with that. So I just figured I'd let you guys know that. So with that, I vote aye.
Thank you. And Council President Waterman.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Okay, on item 10.8 is approved 5-3, with council members Baggiano, Solomon, and Lavarro voting no. Items 10.10 through 10.11 are approved 8-0. Item 10.12 has been withdrawn. Items 10.13 through 15 are approved 8-0. Item 10.16 is approved 6-2, with council members Solomon and Lavarro voting no. And item 10.17 is approved 8-0. Okay, on to the balance of our meeting, which is items 10.18 through 10.23, with the exception of 10.19, which has been withdrawn. 10.23 was the late item that the council has added in the beginning of the meeting, and it's a resolution consenting to, number one, the purchase of the senior housing project located at 1065 Summit Avenue by Muhlenberg Gardens Urban Renewal LLC, and number two, the transfer of the project's tax exemption from the current owner to the purchaser pursuant to the limited dividend nonprofit housing corporations or associations law, NJSA 55:16-1XX. Councilperson Ridley on items 10.18 through 10.23, with the exception of 10.19.
Aye.
Councilperson Prinzary. I believe you're muted. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Aye.
There you go. Councilperson Baggiano.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilperson Solomon.
And no on 1020, aye on all the rest.
Got it. Thank you. Councilperson Robinson.
Aye on all.
Thank you. Councilperson Lavarro.
Yeah, just on 10.20, Brian, I didn't ask this in caucus. Can we get a a report on
Yeah,
grants for the
yeah,
last
I was just
cycle.
thinking about that, that annual report that we do. Yeah, I'll have the vendor put that together and send it to the council when they can.
And, well, I know Corporation Council advised that we couldn't vote no on the transfer of the abatement. I'm going to vote no on 10.23 until I get the information about violations, as well as whether there's a redevelopment agreement in place for the past owner, as well as the future owner of the property, or the current owner of the property, I guess. That I'm not prepared to be able to say I can give my consent to doing that. So I'm going to vote no on 10.23 and aye on all the rest.
Okay, thank you. Councilperson Rivera.
I vote aye.
Thank you. Council President Waterman.
I vote aye.
Very good. If you would allow me to recap, item 10.18 is approved 8-0. 10.19 has been withdrawn. 10.20 is approved 7-1, with Councilperson Solomon voting no. Items 10.21 through 22 are approved 8-0. Item 10.23 is approved 7-1, with Councilperson Navarro voting no. And I believe I caught up all of the rezos. Before I take a motion to adjourn, I just wanted to point out that we received a couple of questions during our meeting, and we will get the contact information from the individuals that made the questions, posed the questions, excuse me. We have a question from Laura. Is it now mandatory to wear a mask at all times when we are walking out, as well as doing essential shopping? We responded to her and asked her for an email address. I don't know if we received that yet, but as soon as we do, we'll pass it along to the rest of the council. We also have a question from Maria Ross. She said, I asked last week if there might be some assistance for homeowner property taxes that are paid directly to the city and not paid as a bank mortgage. Any response? And we're going to get her information as well. And then she also asked, is there any assistance for current Jersey City property taxes, any abatements for Jersey City residents? I don't know if any of the council members would like to respond now, or you just want to have their information and we'll send it along to you guys and you can respond directly to them.
Send the information, Sean.
Very good.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay, I have a motion to adjourn at 6:57 p.m. made by Councilperson Rivera. May I have a second? Second by Councilperson Prince Airy. On the motion to adjourn, everybody in attendance, by acclamation, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are out of here at 6:57 p.m. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, for everyone watching, please stay safe. Continue to keep that safe distance and make sure you're wearing those masks and gloves when you're going out, just to have all those preventive measures, because we want to see those numbers go down and not up in Jersey City and the rest of the nation. So thank you very much, everyone. Stay safe and good night.
Good night, Sean.
Good night.
Good night.
Thanks for Steelers, Sean.
Sean, you almost look like you did this before. You sound like you should be on radio.